The champagne in her glass trembled the same moment her past walked through the restaurant door, and the man with the dragon tattoo slowly rose from his seat, eyes black as midnight. Maeve's fingers trembled as she fastened the delicate silver clasp of her emerald dress. The mirror reflected a woman who looked nothing like the girl she'd been 3 years ago, the one who'd survived on instant noodles and slept in a coat because her ex controlled the thermostat. Tonight marked her first anniversary with Dan Wu, and she'd chosen this dress because he once said green made her eyes look like spring rain. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She touched the faint scar on her collarbone, a reminder of the night her ex had accidentally shoved her into a glass table. Dan Wu had never asked about it. Why, he'd simply kissed it the first night they made love and whispered, "Your past doesn't define you." If only he knew the whole truth. Across the city, Dan Wu Kong sat in his minimalist office, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing Seoul's glittering skyline. A black velvet box rested on his desk. Inside, a key to the art studio he'd secretly purchased for Maeve. She'd mentioned once in passing that she used to paint before life got complicated. He didn't know complicated meant a man who'd burned her canvases to punish her for smiling at a grocery clerk. His phone buzzed. His second-in-command, Minjun. "Reservation confirmed. Perimeter secure. She'll love it, boss." Dan Wu's expression softened, a rare crack in the ice. To the underworld, he was the dragon of Seoul. To Maeve, he was simply the man who brought her coffee every morning and learned to braid her hair from YouTube videos. The restaurant, Azure Moon, was Seoul's most exclusive, a cathedral of crystal chandeliers and hushed wealth. Dan Wu had reserved the entire terrace overlooking the Han River. As they arrived, Maeve's breath caught at the fairy lights woven through cherry blossom branches. "Dan Wu, this is too much." "Nothing is too much for you." His dark eyes held hers with an intensity that still made her knees weak. Then she saw him. Ethan Cole, her ex, American businessman, the man who'd spent 2 years systematically destroying her self-worth. He was here, at the bar, watching her with a smile that made her blood freeze. Have you ever seen someone from your past that made your whole world stop? Drop a comment about how you handled it. Maeve's about to face her worst nightmare. Ethan's voice cut through the ambient music like a serrated knife. "Well, well, little Maeve playing dress-up." He sauntered over, scotch in hand, his expensive suit unable to match the cruelty in his eyes. "I almost didn't recognize you without the tears." Maeve's throat closed. Dan Wu's hand found the small of her back, steady, questioning. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "Please." Ethan laughed, loud enough to turn heads. "That's what you used to say when you begged me not to leave you alone on Christmas. Remember? You sat outside my apartment in the snow for 6 hours like a pathetic—" "That's enough." Dan Wu's voice was glacier soft. Ethan's gaze slid to him, dismissive. "And who's this? The latest meal ticket? Does he know you're a charity case? That you couldn't even keep a goldfish alive without my—" He reached out to touch Maeve's face. He never made contact. Dan Wu's hand caught Ethan's wrist mid-air with crushing precision. The sound of small bones grinding made nearby diners gasp. Dan Wu's expression hadn't changed. Still calm, still devastatingly controlled. But the dragon tattoo peeking above his collar seemed to pulse with dark life. "You're touching my wife," Dan Wu said quietly. "Explain why I shouldn't break every finger." Ethan paled. "Wife? You married her? Do you have any idea what kind of damage—" Dan Wu twisted. Ethan screamed. The restaurant went silent. Waiters froze. The maitre d' reached for his phone, then saw the look in Dan Wu's eyes and slowly backed away. "Maeve," Dan Wu said, never breaking eye contact with Ethan. "Do you want to leave? Or do you want to watch?" Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "I want to watch." Dan Wu smiled, a wolf's smile. "Good answer, my heart." The bathroom door clicked shut behind Maeve. She gripped the marble sink, hyperventilating. In the mirror, her reflection looked like a ghost. He knows. Dan Wu knows I'm broken now. Outside, Dan Wu had released Ethan with a warning that made the man stumble backward, but as Maeve emerged, she saw something worse. Ethan filming her on his phone, narrating, married some Asian gangster. Guess she finally found someone who doesn't know she's a train wreck. "Stop," Maeve pleaded. Please, just delete it. Delete it? Ethan's grin widened. This is going viral, sweetheart. Gold digger with a sketchy past bag's rich husband. Unless... You want to compensate me for my silence? Danwoo appeared like smoke. Name your price. Ethan's eyes gleamed. 50 million won, tonight? Done. Transfer in 10 minutes. Danwoo's tone was ice. Now leave. In the car, Maeve finally exploded. Why did you pay him? You just made me look weak. You're not weak. You don't understand. He'll never stop. He'll keep coming back because he knows I'm... Her voice cracked. I'm the girl who sat in the snow. I'm the girl who begged. Danwoo pulled over, engine idling. You think I paid him to make this go away? Didn't you? His laugh was dark. Maeve, I paid him to confirm his bank account. In 8 hours, that money will be frozen, along with every asset he's ever touched. I needed him to believe he won. He cupped her face. You're not prey anymore. You're the dragon's queen. And tomorrow, he learns what that means. What if he posts the video anyway? He already did. 47,000 views. Danwoo's smile turned lethal. Good. Let the world watch his downfall. The penthouse felt suffocating. Maeve paced the floor-to-ceiling windows while Danwoo worked at his laptop, his expression carved from stone. You need to eat, he said without looking up. I need to disappear. Her voice was raw. Every comment on that video is calling me a gold digger, a manipulator. I don't care what strangers think. Well, I do. She whirled on him. You don't know what it's like to be examined, judged. Ethan used to screenshot my texts and laugh at my grammar with his friends. He made me feel invisible and exposed at the same time. Danwoo finally looked up, then make him invisible. What? He stood, eye crossing to her with predatory grace. You want to hide. I understand. But hiding gives him power. What if instead... He pulled up a secure folder on his tablet. You let me show you who he really is. The screen filled with documents. Embezzlement, fraud, a pattern of targeting vulnerable women, dating them, then blackmailing their new partners. He's done this before? Maeve's hands trembled. 17 times. You were just the first one who got away. Danwoo's jaw tightened. He came here specifically because he's drowning in debt. He thought you'd be easy money. Something ignited in Maeve's chest, not fear. Rage. The cat? She whispered. He took my cat, Luna. Said he gave her away, but I never knew where. I spent months searching. Danwoo's expression shifted. What did she look like? Gray, white paws? Nah, heterochromia, one blue eye, one green. He made a call. Minjun, the ex had a pet. Gray cat, heterochromia. Find it. Now. Danwoo, she's probably... I don't do probably. I do results. He pulled her close. He took your voice, your safety, your cat. Let me give them back. 3 years earlier. Maeve had scraped together 6 months of secret savings, enough for a deposit on a studio apartment. She'd hidden the money in a tampon box because Ethan never touched women's things. But when she came home that Tuesday, the box was open, empty. Looking for this? Ethan held the cash, grinning. You were going to leave me after everything I've done for you? That's my money. Nothing here is yours, not the food, not the bed, not even that mangy cat. He grabbed Luna from her bed. You want to leave? Fine. But she stays. Ethan, please, she's all I have. Exactly. He walked out with Luna crying in his arms. 3 hours later, he texted, gave her to a nice family. Maybe you'll learn to appreciate what you have. Maeve never saw Luna again. Present day, Danwoo's phone buzzed. Boss, we found the cat. Maeve's heart stopped. What? Minjun's voice was careful. She's at a shelter in Busan. Owner surrendered her last year, said she was too much trouble. Staff recognized the description. She's older, but alive. Maeve couldn't breathe. Danwoo was already grabbing his keys. We're going, now. Busan is 3 hours. Helicopter, 20 minutes. He cupped her face. You've spent 3 years thinking you lost her. You're getting her back tonight. In the helicopter, Maeve stared at her hands. Why are you doing this? Because the man I was before you needed to destroy things. But the man you made me want to be? His dark eyes held hers. I build, I protect, I restore. You gave me a reason to be more than the dragon. Let me give you back the pieces he stole. The shelter was closing when they arrived. The staff barely had time to react before Dan Wu's security swept the building. But when the director brought out the carrier, everything stopped. Luna's cry was older, rougher, but unmistakable. Maeve fell to her knees as they opened the carrier. The gray cat limped out, arthritis maybe, but those mismatched eyes locked onto Maeve's face and remembered. Luna, Maeve sobbed. Baby, I looked everywhere. I'm so sorry. The cat pressed against her chest, purring like a broken engine. Maeve buried her face in Luna's fur. 3 years of grief finally breaking open. Dan Wu knelt beside them, one hand on Maeve's back. He said nothing, just held space for her, unraveling. Back at the penthouse, Luna curled in Maeve's lap, while Dan Wu prepared tea. The silence was different now, sacred, soft. My sister, Dan Wu said quietly, was in a relationship like yours. Maeve looked up, shocked. He never spoke about his family. He isolated her, made her think she was nothing. When she finally tried to leave, his hands tightened on the cup. She didn't make it to the door. Heart attack. 23 years old. Stress-induced. Dan Wu. The man wasn't charged. Natural causes. His voice was hollow. I built my empire hunting men like him, taking everything they value, making them feel powerless. He met her eyes. Then I met you, and I realized revenge doesn't heal the wound. But protecting someone who survived, giving them back their power, that's the only thing that makes her death mean something. Maeve took his hand. You're not just protecting me, you're saving yourself too. I know. He kissed her forehead. We save each other. The email arrived at 3 a.m. Subject: Let's make a deal. Maeve, cute stunt with a cat, but you're still the girl who begged. I have videos, photos, every desperate text you sent me for 2 years. Unless you wire $500 million won by Friday, I'm releasing everything. Your precious husband will see exactly how pathetic you really are. Or meet me, alone. We'll negotiate. Maeve's hands shook so violently she dropped her phone. Dan Wu was instantly awake. What happened? She couldn't speak, just showed him the screen. His expression went apocalyptic. He's bluffing. What if he's not? What if there are things I don't even remember? Photos he took when I was asleep, recordings. Her voice spiraled. I can't let you see me like that. Broken. Begging him to love me. You think anything he shows me would change how I see you? Yes. She stood pacing. You see me as strong, as your equal. But those videos? They'll show you the truth. I was weak, Dan Wu. I stayed for 2 years. I apologized when he hurt me. Stop! His voice cracked like a whip. You survived. That's not weakness. You don't understand? Then make me understand. Show me what you're so afraid of. The words detonated between them. I'm afraid, Maeve whispered, that you'll look at me the way he did. Like I'm broken. Like I'm nothing. Dan Wu reached for her. She stepped back. I need air. Maeve, please, just let me think. She grabbed her coat and left. Dan Wu stood in the empty penthouse, his hands curling into fists. For the first time in 10 years, the dragon felt powerless. And across the city, Ethan Cole smiled at his phone, watching the tracker he'd planted in her purse move toward the Han River. Maeve sat on the riverbank, Luna's carrier beside her. The cat purred softly, oblivious to the chaos. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. Running away again? Some things never change. She stared at the message, then at her reflection in the dark water. Who am I? The girl who sat in the snow? Or the woman who married the dragon? Her phone rang, unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Kang, a woman's voice. My name is Dr. Yoon. I run a domestic violence shelter. Your husband's foundation has been funding us for 3 years? Maeve froze. His foundation? He never told you? Dr. Yoon's voice softened. Every woman we've helped, legal fees, housing, therapy, it's all him. He told me once that he does it for someone he couldn't save. I think he meant you, Mrs. Kang, even before you were ready to save yourself. The call ended. Maeve stared at her phone, something clicking into place. She opened her messages to Ethan and typed, "You want to meet? Fine. Azure Moon, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Come alone." Then she called Dan Wu. "I'm sorry," she whispered when he answered. "I'm sorry I ran, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" His voice was rough. "Always." "Tomorrow night, Ethan's coming to Azure Moon. I'm going to face him, but I need you there. Not to save me?" She took a shaking breath. To stand beside me while I save myself?" Silence, then, "I'll be there. But Maeve, he's dangerous." "So am I." Her voice hardened. "I'm the dragon's wife. It's time I learned to breathe fire." Across the city, Min Jun handed Dan Wu a dossier. "Everything we need. He's finished." Dan Wu smiled darkly. "No, we let her finish him. We just make sure he can't run." Azure Moon was packed. Dan Wu had ensured it. Every table filled with Seoul's elite. Witnesses. Maeve entered in a crimson dress, Luna watching from a carrier held by Min Jun. She looked like war itself. Ethan was already there, smug. "You came, I knew you'd—" "Shut up." Her voice cut through the restaurant. Conversation stopped. "You wanted an audience? You've got one." She pulled out a microphone. Dan Wu had arranged it with the manager. "My name is Maeve Kang. 3 years ago, and I was in an abusive relationship with this man." She pointed at Ethan. "He controlled my money, isolated me from friends, took my cat to punish me for wanting freedom, and tonight he tried to blackmail me by threatening to release videos of my trauma." The room erupted in whispers. Ethan lunged for her. Dan Wu appeared like smoke, blocking him. "Touch her, and you lose the hand." Maeve continued, her voice steady. "I was ashamed. I thought my pain made me weak. But I was wrong." She looked directly at Ethan. "Surviving you made me strong, and now I'm taking my voice back." She nodded to Min Jun, who projected images on the restaurant's screens. Ethan's fraud, his pattern of abuse, police reports from 4 other women. "This is who you are, Ethan. Not powerful, not clever, just small." Police entered. Ethan's face drained of color as they cuffed him. "You can't. This is entrapment." "This is justice," Dan Wu said softly. As they dragged Ethan out, Maeve turned to the crowd. "If you're scared to leave, if you think you're alone, you're not. Fight back. Your voice matters." The applause started slow, then thunderous. Dan Wu pulled her close. "Proud of you, my queen." She kissed him. "Our empire just got bigger." 6 months later, Maeve cut the ribbon on the Luna Foundation, a shelter for abuse survivors. Luna purred in her arms. Dan Wu stood beside her, his hand never leaving hers. "Mrs. Kang," a reporter called. "What's next?" She smiled. "We're just getting started." Maeve found her voice. If this story moved you, drop a comment with one word that describes how you're feeling right now. And remember, you're stronger than you think. See you in the next story.